This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Got Manny on because Manny's Cuban, and I've got Cuban in my background too. And New Yorkers are a lot like old Cuban people, Manny. You know our old Cuban relatives. Oh, boy, tú sabes
That's right.
En Cuba se hacía esto, en Cuba, and you know. So our old Cuban people, we're talking about, like, he and I are old now, but like we're talking about our grandparents that are like 70 and 80, and they would tell you that Cuba's the greatest. I'm telling you, old Cubans and New Yorkers are the same exact person, bro. Same exact person. Everything is overhyped. And you're like, bro, you're here, not in New York or in Cuba. What are you talking about, bro?
Yeah, man. And let me tell you, I married into that because not only is my wife Cuban, but her parents are also New York Cuban. So imagine that.
God. Oh, God.
Yeah. Double.
Yo. As I'm
Yep.
would say, Nyo. All
yeah,
right,
exactly.
You are. Oh, wow, that is that's crazy. All right, man. That was fun. That was fun. That was it was a moment where you can exhale because we've been trying to walk people off the ledge for a while, you, me. I don't know how many in the media are necessarily Mario believers. I'm a believer in Mario. And I knew it was going to take a little bit, but maybe it's actually happening a little faster than what we expected. But it was fun to watch a responsible team play solid football in week one against a poor opponent. I don't care about the opponent. I cared about the brand of football that they played, which meant a lot to me because they didn't play that kind of brand of football last year. And then to take it up a notch now against a team that is actually more talented than you are, and to outplay them the way you had, the way you did, and Van Dyke, by the way, had a magnificent game. Just really, really proud of the progress that Mario, his staff, those kids, and moving that culture forward because you could tell those are different human beings that are on the field.
Yeah, I think that was really the takeaway is look, this is a team that had to prove it. You know, they had to show that they had heart and character, and they fell behind 10-0 before you could blink. And I'm sitting there in the press box thinking to myself, man, this is not what Mario wants, right? And then you have the muffed punt, it's 17-7 all of a sudden, and all that good momentum goes out the window. And then Tyler Van Dyke just settled in, and that offense just settled in, and a bunch of receivers who, let's face it, for as much as we've heard about Xavier Restrepo and how great he is in practice, that was his second 100-yard receiving game, okay, of his career. That's only the second time he's done it. Jacoby George had one touchdown coming into that game as a receiver. He had 3. So these guys went out there and they performed in ways that we hadn't seen them really do before, and rebounded from some several gut punches to the face and just, you know, big blows, and they responded. And that's what you wanted to see out of this team. That's what I wanted to see before I could say that they're back or they're back on the right path, really. Now they're back on the right path. They'll be back when they play for a national championship, win an ACC championship. That's when Miami will be Miami again. But as far as Mario getting them to where he wanted them to be, to where they're playing the style of football that he wants, where you've got a big offensive line protecting your quarterback, that the big plays are back on offense, that there's guys hitting people on defense. Miami football, what we knew it as, took him 14 games, but he got there. He got there after 14 games.
Yeah. And listen, again, when you start putting things together, you know, you saw when InterMiami started their business, they didn't have the right general manager or coach, and then they had to kind of, and even players, and they had to figure that out. Mike McDaniel last year did not have some of the right coaches. He had to make some changes. When Chris Greer first was hired full-time to be the guy, he hired the wrong coach. Right. Had to follow that one to then get Mike McDaniel. So changes sometimes, and this happens in every business and coaching staffs, and Mario had to go kind of through the same thing last year. He put together a staff initially that did not work out, plus he inherited a bunch of kids that he did not want.
Yeah.
And so then it's kind of a whole transition thing. And I think he's done a marvelous job to get these kind of results in year 2 and in the second game against a quality opponent. By the way, a quality opponent that desperately needed that win because
Yeah.
Jimbo Fisher is falling into the abyss at Texas A&M. He's already got a whole bunch of people that are off his bandwagon as
Yeah.
it is. So he's just picking up more and more people that are saying, "Hey, are we getting closer to buying this guy out?" That's kind
Yeah.
of what's happening there at Texas A&M. So they won a game against a team that desperately needed that game.
Well, and I would say it's culture. It's what Mario's been building, right? Versus what Jimbo has been building over there. Where, I think what really disrupted Texas A&M last year, and not that we need to talk about them for too much, but you bring in, all those highly paid freshmen, right, through NIL, all those 5 stars in that #1 class, and a bunch of seniors and guys who have been busting their ass for them are like, what the hell, man? These guys just got here and you're playing them. Mario went about this progressively, right? Like Dion went with 71 transfers. No, Mario has kind of chipped away little by little. Transfer portal, recruiting class, transfer portal, young guys, old guys, young guys, old guys, young guys, old guys.
Yeah,
It's a
figuring
different,
out who can play,
right,
you stay, and if you can't play, get the hell out of here. Yeah,
right.
that's what he
And
said.
and it's been an evaluation process. And in the end, give him credit. He screwed up the first coaching hires. He got the second ones right. And the bottom line is he had to come in here and get a taste of the locker room, see what he really had to work with. And then once he figured that out, he's like, okay, we need this guy, Shannon Dawson, who's coached with lesser talent at Houston and West Virginia. We need this guy on defense, and Lance Guidry, who's coached with lesser talent at places like Marshall and McNeese State. And they're going to help us get to where we really want to go. And so those guys maximize the talent that they have. And look, as good as Miami fans feel today, still remember, I don't care what the 247 rankings say as far as talent and all that kind of stuff. This is still not a very deep team, right? Like, don't get a false sense of security now. These guys are going 15-0 and playing for a national championship. Like, there are still holes on this team. And you lose a Cam Kitchens the way you lost them in that game. You lose a couple of those starting defensive linemen. Injuries. This is a team where Mario's still trying to build the depth. So I guess my whole point of this is great step in the right direction, but don't lose your minds either yet just because they beat Texas A&M. There's a long season to go.
Now, I will say this, bro. Tyler Van Dyke looks comfortable, and he made some throws, dude.
Yeah.
Like some throws.
No, yeah, this is the Tyler Van Dyke that we saw at the end of the 21 season. And he can make those throws. The problem is he didn't have any receivers last year who were creating the type of separation that he needed. You saw it on Saturday. Zay Horton, a kid who's in his second year, that first bomb that he throws down the field for the 52-yard touchdown, right? That's a kid who Mario ends up signing. And you're like, okay, let's see when this kid finally gets in the game and does something. Well, it happened. It happened in his second game of his second year. Xavier Restrepo injured most of last year, right? Well, he's healthy now. He finally has an opportunity to go out there and look like the Xavier Restrepo we hear about at Green Tree. So it's just a matter of timing and when everything starts to click. And so it did on Saturday, and that's great. And I think, Miami fans, there were a lot of Miami fans who jumped off the Tyler bandwagon last year, bro. They were like, this guy stinks. And it's like, dude, look at the offensive coordinator. Look at what he's working with the receivers. Look at his offensive line.
He didn't compliment the quarterback. Yeah.
You upgrade everything around him, including the play calling, which I thought was fabulous. Shannon Dawson, I mean, some of those play calls are on the goal line, and he gave some credit to Alex Mirabal for coming up with one of those plays for the touchdown. It's the right kind of coaching. Everything is right now. Everything is in the right path for Miami to have success, and it just took a little while. That's all.
And it's normal, dude.
Yeah,
it's normal. InterMiami made changes, like I just said, and Chris Greer had to make changes. Everybody, I remember Spo when he took over a couple years. He changed his entire staff. You know what I mean? That happens, dude. It's just that's normal. That's part of the process. And when you take over and start something new, you're not going to make all the right hires, bro. You're going to screw up and you're going to have to make changes. The question is, do you make the changes for the better, or do you continue to screw up and can't hire one person after another? That was Flo's problem, that he couldn't build an offensive staff because he could never keep anybody he hires. He would end up firing firing him over and over again. And that's just part of the process. The offensive line had a much bigger challenge this past week. After watching the tape, what'd you think? Because they only allowed 2 sacks in that game.
Yeah, and really, when you look at the amount of pressure that he's felt, I looked this up. I compared him to all the other quarterbacks in the ACC. Fewest amount of pressures, in terms of drop back percentage, than any quarterback in the league, and that's why you're seeing the old Tyler Van Dyke. He was they brought the blitz on him 11 times. He was 7 of 11 for 3 touchdowns and 114 yards. That was not a good idea for Texas A&M. Why? Because when they brought that extra pass rush, that meant somebody was open in the somebody was open, and he found him right when he was under pressure. 3 of 5, 103 yards and a touchdown. So that was smart decision making by Tyler. He's pressured 7 times in the whole game. So, I mean, they're protecting him. They're giving him the time. Teams are trying to bring extra pressure. This is how you win. This is how you beat good teams, when you have a great offensive line. And they didn't have to necessarily run the ball great. I thought they ran it okay in this game. They lost Mark Fletcher, as I mentioned earlier, to an injury. But look, to me, everything was encouraging. You need to be able to score points in college football. We know that. This is a high-scoring game now. 48 points, 48-33. That's kind of what good teams do. They have those kind of shootouts now. It's not the days of years past when we had 14-10 or 17-13 type games. So this is what Miami needs to be the kind of team that can contend for an ACC championship.
The running game, it wasn't as big a part of it. Was that the plan, or was it more that Texas A&M just kind of did not allow them to get comfortable in that area?
Well, I mean, I think part of it was Texas A&M trusted its secondary to do their job. They left their guys on an island a lot. You saw a lot of one-on-one coverage down the field. You had some safety help, some cover too, but they were focused on stopping Miami's run this week for sure. Versus where I think the previous week against Miami of Ohio was like, we're not letting you beat us deep, and that's why Miami ran for 250 yards. So it's very encouraging that Shannon Dawson's offense can win both ways. Like the fact that they can pound you with the rock and the fact that they can throw it against you. This is what great teams do. This is what winning teams do. They're able to beat you either way, and you shut down one. You decide, hey, we're going to do this today. Well, they counter and they do something else, and they're able to still be successful. So that's really, really encouraging.
By the way, use our code BIGO10 at caneswear.com online. If you order over $99, you'll get free shipping. Use our code BIGO10. You can get 10% off. If you go to the store, you can also use our code BIGO10 so you can get 10% off. You'll get anything and everything they've got there with the logo on it. InterMiami gear. We got Messi and the boys in action on Saturday. We got Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, Florida Panthers, Miami Marlins, all kinds of stuff. Bigger, newer store, brand new, and it's right there next to La Spada in Davie. Go visit our friends at Caneswear. And again, use our code BIGO10. Cam Kinchins, it looked like, a stinger or something? I know they're not going to tell you exactly, but it looks like he's fine. And do we know when he'll return?
I don't think it's a serious injury. I think it's very precautionary. Obviously, when you get hit in the head neck area, they're going to do everything possible, tell you don't move, don't hurt yourself, or they kind of tightly strap them to the stretcher. I've heard it's not a major injury, that it's more of maybe a week or two type deal, head neck type thing, but nothing spinal, nothing of that sort, and certainly the photos of him in the hospital sort of showed you. So, I think, look, this is a hard-hitting game. There's some guys that probably left with some concussions in this game. Some guys who left a little banged up with knee injuries. But I don't think, as far as Cam is concerned or Mark Fletcher is concerned, that either one of those guys is going to be out very long. Now, I can't tell you about the defensive lineman, because anytime it involves a lower body extremity, as Miami said, it's one of those who really knows, right? Until they come out and tell you he's out for the year, he's broke his ankle or sprained or whatever. So I don't have any answers on that, but I think as far as Fletcher and Kitchens are concerned, I'm encouraged. I think they'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Recruiting wise, these moments have come the last few years, and Miami thoroughly gets embarrassed, and recruits see that it's a terrible performance, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Well, you had some big recruits in the building on Saturday, and they saw an ass-kicking performance, Thank the Lord. Well, that's pretty cool. Good for
Absolutely.
you, Mario.
Absolutely. And they picked up a commitment from one of the top receivers locally in the 2025 recruiting class, a kid named Wade and Charles that I got to watch in the 7-on-7 circuit. Big body dude, fast dude, playmaker. He's not Jeremiah Smith, who's the number 2 recruit in the entire country in the 24 class, but he's definitely a top, in my mind, 200 player in the country in his class, and a guy that is the kind of playmaker that Miami has lost to other schools in the past. Now, granted, look, this is a long time from here until his signing day, even this one coming up in December. We still got a lot more football to play, but I think I asked James Williams after the game, I said, look, you were a 5-star recruit, man, who ended up staying home really because of the COVID year, right? He wasn't able to take official visits other places, didn't really get recruited, just decided, hey, I like the Hurricanes, I'm going to stay home. I asked him after the game, I said, hey, what do you think this means for all those elite recruits who were here tonight watching this game? It was 100 recruits. He said, man, this is all we ever want to see. We want to see Miami win big games. And so this is just reassurance for Mario's message. Hey, things are changing. And so now you're going to get the kind of buy-in, I think, from the Miami's commitments, the guys that they already had committed, that were kind of like, hey, let's see how they do. And I think you're getting buy-in from future recruits. And so, you just got to string it together. I said, before the year, you go 9-3, 8-4, you should be able to keep your class together. Man, if they win 10 games this year, which is a possibility, right? I think the toughest ones left are North Carolina and Clemson. If you look at the first 2 weeks, if they do that, they're going to add guys to this class and the one after, and it's going to be a really good year in terms of roster building.
All right. They're ranked. How about that? How the boys feeling about it? I mean, once you get ranked, I wonder if it adds a little hunger and say, hey guys, we want to keep this ranking. I know the coach, I know the administration wants to keep a ranking because that's a lot easier to recruit when you're constantly a ranked team.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that matters, and you're on the national radar, right? And look, it was this game this past Saturday was the third most watched college football game, so that's a great sign for Miami, right? To be nationally relevant again, so everybody in the country watched them, 4 million viewers. Look, staying in the rankings, I don't know how important it's going to be ultimately, like in the weeks ahead when you're playing sort of lower end teams like Bethune-Cookman and Temple, and then you got Georgia Tech, who's probably going to have a couple losses when they come to town. But certainly, if you can get to that North Carolina game, which is week 6, and both teams are undefeated, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that gets people fired up and gets recruits fired up and gets the program, the kind of interest that they want. So we will see. They got to win these next 3 games. North Carolina has a couple tough tests before then, but I think you got to circle that first ACC road game and say, man, if Miami gets an undefeated Drake May and they're both teams are undefeated, it's going to be a really, really a magnetizing game for people to tune in and watch.
I'm looking forward to it, boy. This win this past Saturday made things so much more interesting for this season. All right, follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. Better yet, subscribe to The Athletic like I do and many others, and support Manny and get all the info you can handle locally and nationally, by the way. Yep. Manny, as always, thank you, my brother. We'll catch up later on in the week as they get ready. Well, actually, we'll talk the day after.
The day after Bethune-Cookman, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll talk because they play on Thursday. Appreciate you.
Yep. All right, brother. Take care.
You got it. Manny Navarro and our Caneswear Miami Hurricanes report.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.